The summer dawn over Chestnut Gap, Living History Village, usually broke like a gentle drum roll. First the mountain thrushes, then the faint clap of wagon wheels, and finally the bright clang of Silas Forge's anvil as he tested his tools for the day's guests. On the morning before the annual Colonial Fair, however, the drum roll halted midway. The songbirds sang, wagons rattled, but absolutely nothing rang from the forge. Lucy Caldwell, costumed in linen stays and a mob cap she'd sewn herself, was carrying a basket of seed packets to the herb garden when she saw Silas step out of the smithy. His big hands, normally soot-black by this hour, were clean and spread in disbelief. Behind him, the forge glowed, bellows sighed, and iron rods lay ready. Only the heart of the place, the anvil that had anchored every demonstration for 30 seasons, was gone. "Someone's taken it," he said to Lucy, voice hoarse. "An anvil can't sprout legs, so someone carried it clean off." "Carried?" Lucy set down the basket. A standard smith's anvil weighed 200 pounds if it weighed an ounce. Who would be foolhardy enough? "Or strong enough?" Silas shook his head, beard bristling. "We built this entire fair around live forging. No anvil, no smithy, no fair. Insurance won't let us run the forge for show without a proper service." Lucy felt a chill deeper than the mist from the adjacent Shenandoah River. The Colonial Fair drew hundreds into the Blue Ridge each July, the village's one shot at turning modest grant money into sufficient funds to keep the place open through winter. Cancelling it would be catastrophic. Across the commons, staff arrived, costumed interpreters, high school volunteers, board members, each catching whispers of the disappearance. Mary Whitcomb, the site director, strode from the tavern office in her tricorn hat, clipboard clutched like a sabre. She called an emergency council inside the tavern's tap room, its oak beams still scented with last night's cider. Silas, Lucy, Mary, gardener Alma Jimenez, stable master Ezra Boone, weaver Ruth Talley, and a scrawny first-year volunteer named Camden Rice formed a circle around a scarred pine table. From beyond the door drifted fiddle tunes as a musician warmed up, blissfully unaware that the festival might be doomed. Mary cleared her throat. "We have 4 hours before the gates open and 2 before the insurance adjuster arrives to confirm we're demonstration ready. We must locate the anvil or produce an acceptable substitute." Silas muttered, "You can't substitute a 200-pound Peter Wright farrier's anvil with a kitchen skillet." Lucy raised a hand. "Let's catalogue what we know. Silas left the forge at 9:30 last night after the final safety check." "Aye," Silas said. "Locked up right after I banked the coals. Anvil was secure." "Who had keys?" Lucy asked. Mary pointed to herself, Silas, and the night security guard Randy Holcomb. "An ex-state trooper with a limp. We rotate locks for events, remember? Only we 3. Camden, fidgeting with his woolen waistcoat, blurted, "Could it be the Chestnut Gap ghost?" Ruth rolled her eyes. "We interpret colonial history, Camden, not tall tales." Yet Lucy knew tourists loved the story. A patriot farrier who, legend claimed, forged clandestine horseshoes for Washington's dragoons, then vanished into smoke when Redcoat scouts closed in. Mary steered them back. "Silas, describe any unusual mark." "I noticed drag lines in the dirt floor, headed toward the back door, but they dead-ended. Someone must have lifted it onto a wagon outside." "So we search wagons," Ezra offered. "Guests and staff can't arrive with non-period vehicles till noon, but last night a few supply trucks came through." Mary assigned tasks. Ezra would inspect every wagon and carriage on the property. Ruth and Alma would question vendors setting up stalls. Camden would fetch Randy for a debrief. Silas would canvass local pawn and scrapyards by phone. Lucy, as the unofficial village sleuth, thanks to a semester of forensic anthropology and an avowed obsession with Sherlock Holmes, would examine the forge for physical evidence. As the impromptu task force scattered, Lucy hurried back across the dewy grass. Logs still pooled in hollows. Split-rail fences looked like lines of half-sunken ships. At the forge, she tied her apron tighter and crouched by the doorsill. The drag marks were clear, 2 parallel grooves deeper near the center. She measured with her fingers, 8 inches apart. Perhaps a homemade dolly. Yet the grooves vanished outside, where bricks paved the walkway. She found something else. A sprinkling of silver-grey flakes, not typical forged scale or ash they glinted. She rubbed one between thumb and forefinger. Graphite? That reminded her of lock lubricant. Someone might have greased the hinges to move quietly. She photographed with her phone discreetly, because authenticity rules, frowned on modern gadgets, and slipped a flake into a coin envelope. Next, she searched the tool racks. Tongs, hammers, chisels, all in place, only heavier sledges were missing. Leverage to pry and shift the anvil. Whoever did this knew the forge. Ruth hurried in, skirts swishing. Vendors claim innocence. One did mention hearing wheels around midnight. Carts? Could have been, but security said no carts moved after 10. Where's Randy? Lucy asked. Camden went to find him. They're due any minute. Lucy's phone buzzed. She stepped outside. The anvil hadn't turned up at scrapyards. A yard manager did note someone calling earlier in the week, inquiring what price they paid for antique anvils. Anything else? Lucy asked. Manager said the caller used a blocked number, but the voice sounded young. When Lucy returned to the forge, she discovered Camden in tears on a workbench seat, and Randy standing stiff in the doorway. What's happened? Lucy demanded. Randy removed his cap. Camden's admitting he sneaked out of the volunteer bunkhouse last night, after curfew. Camden wiped his eyes. I wasn't stealing. I promised Mum I'd call home each night. Phone chargers are only in the office barn, so I slipped across the green around 11. Did you see anyone? Lucy urged. I heard a wagon rolling near the blacksmith's shop. Thought it was stage props. The moon was bright. But, he hesitated. There were 2 figures, short, one taller than me but not grown man tall, and one smaller. Randy grunted. Kids. Lucy knelt in front of Camden. Could you identify them? Maybe silhouettes. The tall one wore a tricorn hat, which described half the staff, Lucy thought. Yet only staff children were that height. Mary Whitcomb's 14-year-old twins, Addie and Cole, had practiced smithing under Silas last spring. They might know where pry bars were kept. Lucy examined fresh boot prints outside the forge again, this time turning over loose straw to expose bare earth. Among adult heel marks lay 2 smaller prints, distinct, with crosswise lines. The herringbone pattern of modern sneakers disguised with leather spats. Lucy had admired those makeshift period covers on Addie's sneakers yesterday. She needed confirmation, but couldn't storm the director's family without proof. Instead, she walked the perimeter path toward the stables. Ezra was inside the tack room, rummaging. Any sign of a wagon? Lucy asked. Nothing missing. He scratched his chin. But the mini-cart's shafts show fresh scuffing. The cart's sized for ponies. Ponies? The village kept 2 Shetlands for children's rides. Any teen could hitch them unnoticed at night, especially if they'd grown up on the grounds. Ezra, can you hitch Daisy and Clover for me? Lucy requested. We might need to retrace some tracks. Outside, they followed faint wheel ruts through dew-wet grass, behind the barns, to a grove of sycamores, then toward the orchard that bordered forested federal land. 50 yards in, the ruts ended beside a cellar door, one of the old hillside storage chambers predating refrigeration. The wood was ajar, barred from outside by a plank, as though hastily but incompletely locked. Lucy removed the plank and listened. From below rose a dull metallic clink and a whisper. She signaled Ezra to stay back and descended the stone steps. A lantern flickered within, illuminating 2 startled faces, Addie and Cole Whitcomb. Between them sat Silas's anvil on a pair of log rounds, its horn smeared with green paint. A canvas banner lay on the floor, half stenciled with letters, Liberty Anvil 1775. Addie's cheeks flushed. We were going to surprise everyone, Cole protested. It was for the fair, a special reveal. We wanted to reenact the legend of the Liberty Anvil, presented at noon after the opening salvo. Lucy breathed out slowly. By removing the real anvil, we thought we could borrow it, Addie said. Paint it to look aged, wheel it out in the procession with fife and drum. Dad's investors adore theatrics. We figured it'd pump ticket sales. Lucy sat on a mildew-dusted barrel. The cellar smell mingled with regret. Did it occur to you the fair can't open without the anvil in its rightful place, and that moving it risked serious injury? Cole kicked a pebble. We used leverage. Dad taught us physics. Lucy surveyed the scene. A homemade block-and-tackle rig dangled from a beam, rope rated far too weak for safety. Lanterns in a closed cellar, fire hazard. The twins' enthusiasm was admirable, their execution dangerous. Come, Lucy said gently. Let's fix this before the investors arrive. They extorted promises. No punishment until after the fair, no parental humiliation, but complete compassion to me. Lucy agreed to broker the discussion. Ezra helped maneuver the anvil onto the pony cart. Returning across the orchard, Lucy calculated. They still had 90 minutes till the gates opened. If they polished off the green paint, likely water-based craft paint, they could restore the anvil's patina and reset the forge. Silas awaited them at the smithy doorway, arms folded. His face burned from equal parts anger and relief. Addie swallowed. Sorry, Mr. Forge, Cole added. We'll scrub every horseshoe in your shop for a month. Silas stared at them, then at Lucy. Kids, let's get to work. Inside, he fired the forge to low heat. The warmth would dry residue. Lucy fetched vinegar, sand, and rags from the stable, and for 40 minutes they scoured that anvil top to bottom. Green streaks bled away like sins. Silas struck the face with his 2-pound crosspeen. The note rang true, bright as breakfast bells. Mary came running, clipboard abandoned. I heard rumours. Is that... It's back, Lucy said. Mary's eyes flicked to her twins, now flecked with green. She opened her mouth, closed it, then exhaled. We'll discuss later. But Randy the guard, Camden in tow, strode in. Anvil secured? See for yourself, Silas replied. Mary rallied. Stage managers, spread word the fair proceeds on schedule. Ezra rang the tavern bell, 3 sonorous peals that signalled all is well. Staff and vendors shared sighs of relief audible across the commons. Yet Lucy felt unfinished. She walked outside with Mary while Silas resumed hammering sample nails for the opening demo. Your children meant no harm, Lucy offered. Mary rubbed her temples. I turned my back for one planning meeting and they script a whole revolutionary stunt. Investors love drama, true, but insurance hates surprises. Still, Lucy continued, their idea has merit. A Liberty Anvil ceremony would thrill guests if handled correctly. Correct to proper safety measures. Mary considered. Could we adapt it? Perhaps a narrated procession at dusk, with lanterns and militia escort? We have the actors, the music, and now... Lucy gestured to the forge. The anvil. The director's eyes brightened. Write me a 2-paragraph pitch before 5 o'clock, and we'll add it. They parted. Lucy hurried to dressing rooms to pull on her afternoon gown, mind racing with narration lines. The Colonial fair commenced at 10 on the stroke. Fife and drum corps marched through the gate as smoke curled from the smithy chimney. Children lined up for penny whistle lessons. Costumed interpreters in breeches and petticoats spun tales beneath canvas awnings. Silas hammered horseshoe nails, sparks flying in rhythmic arcs. The anvil, restored to center stage, drew awe from spectators, particularly when Silas explained it had been crafted in England before the Revolution, yet now shaped metal for democratic reenactors in the 21st century. Only Camden and Lucy knew how close Catastrophe had loomed. The boy volunteer helped distribute cooling lemon switchel. grinning each time Silas's hammer struck solid steel. At noon, Mary gave opening remarks from the courthouse steps. She thanked sponsors, welcomed tourists from as far as Michigan, and concluded, "Stay until dusk for a brand new feature, the Liberty Anvil Lantern Pageant, honoring secret patriots of 1775. Addie and Cole exchanged relieved looks amid the crowd, aware their misdemeanor was becoming village law, albeit recast within safe parameters. The afternoon flowed like molasses in summer heat, slow but sweet. Weaver Ruth taught spinning. Ulma guided herbal salve workshops. Ezra's pony rides circled the green. Lucy found a spare minute in the tavern taproom, quill pen scratching parchment for the pageant script. She wrote of farriers forging freedom under occupied streets, of anvils muffled in earth to hide from enemy patrols, of ordinary tools becoming symbols when wielded with resolve. Outside the open window, a man's voice said, "Miss Caldwell?" Silas stood there, wiping sweat with a rag. His broad smile cracked lingering tension. "I reckon you saved my trade, and this fair." "I had help," Lucy replied. "2 mischievous apprentices, and a village that refuses to quit." He chuckled. True forge work is rarely single-handed. They watched the commons. Evening shadows lengthened toward the Blue Ridge peaks. Lanterns were lit one by one along the main thoroughfare, tiny stars mirroring those due overhead. At 8 o'clock, the Liberty Anvil pageant began. Musicians led a solemn procession. Interpreters carried the anvil atop a reinforced cart, flanked by 6 costumed militia, including Addie and Cole at the rear, heads held high. Lucy narrated from the courthouse balcony. "Behold, the anvil, heartbeat of a revolution, ringing out hope upon iron and flame. When tyrants sought to silence such songs, brave souls spirited this very tool into hidden cellars, so that liberty's music would not perish." Her words drifted under the lantern glow. Visitors sighed, children held parents' hands tighter. Silas stepped forward, striking the anvil once with his hammer. The note resonated across Chestnut Gap, bounced off darkening hills and flew into night air. Applause erupted, fireflies rose from grass like scattered sparks. Mary clasped Lucy's arm. "Your script is moving people to tears," Lucy murmured. "Sometimes chaos forges better stories than order ever could." Cole and Addie set the anvil upon a plinth in front of the courthouse for one final tableau. They glanced at their mother, bracing for consequences. Mary extended her arms and drew them into a hug. "Grounded till school resumes," she whispered, "but I'm proud." The twins grinned, partly chastened, partly triumphant. Randy, the guard, caught Lucy's eye and nodded acknowledgement. Camden slipped her a cup of root beer as thanks for not exposing his curfew break. Silas approached, handing Lucy a small iron nail he'd forged specially. Its head was stamped with a tiny L for Liberty. "Souvenir," he said. Lucy turned it over in her palm. Symbols, she thought, were just objects, until stories lent them power, like an anvil transformed into legend by a pair of over-curious teens. The pageant wound down. Lanterns were doused one by one. Guests wandered to their cars marveling about how real history felt that night. Beyond them, Blue Ridge ridgeline smoldered under a crescent moon. When the last visitor left, staff gathered around Silas's forge, exhausted yet buzzing. They toasted with leftover cider. Mary raised her mug. "To disasters averted, legends invented, and a community that holds itself together with equal parts iron and imagination." "Might keep a closer watch on the anvil next year," Silas added, teasing the twins. Lucy sipped cider, the nail still warming her palm. She saw in the reflection of the forge flame a portrait of everything she loved about Chestnut Gap. Not costumed perfection, but messy collaboration. The village had survived because creativity flared the moment disaster struck, just as colonial blacksmiths once hammered raw ore into tools for a new nation. Outside, a gentle wind rattled the sycamores. carrying distant echoes of Silas's hammer. Somewhere in that hush, Lucy fancied, the old patriot farrier's ghost chuckled, pleased that his Anvil's legend lived anew, secured by hearts that still believed metal and people could be reforged when fire met resolve.